Hello and welcome to the Common Sense podcast by Rupeeting. My name is Ayush. Can you all say your names?
I'm Tejas.
Dharmic, I'm an intern here.
I'm an
And
intern
we are
too.
back again. We are back again with a new topic for this week. We're covering the paint industry this time, and I think the only name that would come up first in your head would be Asian Paints, since they're the biggest players out there, and we're going to cover them today. I think Asian Paints had like a very interesting beginning, right? Because I think they began just a few years before India gained independence, around 1942, and this is
Yeah,
during like the World War II scene. So in the most grim situation possible, a bunch of dudes went out to their garage and started up a paint company. And I think at the time the only big paint company was Shalimar, and they
yeah.
beat the odds and everything and have squashed every competitive spree in their way and have come up to become one of the largest paint companies in the world. I think they rank about seventh or ninth in the world, and
Third
India
in the
made
world.
third to Yoga. It's not that
Third in
large of a
Asia.
market.
Third in Asia.
Third in Asia, correct,
Yeah.
possible, and then ninth in the world, and they're quite the stock as well, having doubled and tripled over the past few years just by their brand being such a strong one. So we're going to cover them today, and I think more importantly, in the 56 years of them being the largest company, so I think from 67 se leke abhi tak, they've been the player. No one's been able to even come close. But now, players like Grasim, JSW Paints, new players are coming into the paint market with loads and loads of money to their disposal and setting up production plants, setting up distribution all from scratch, and trying to beat Asian Paints at their own game, while players that were already existed like Berger, Nerolac, and I think
Axonoble.
the company is called Axonoble, but I think people don't know it as Axonoble. They know it as the
It's
brand, which is
Dulux.
Dulux.
Dulux. Yeah.
So these companies that were previously extremely tiny have also started inching up and growing at industry level numbers. And now they're expanding their operations as well. So there's a lot of competition brewing in the paint industry right now. And we're here to sit down and see whether Asian Paints can weather that entire storm and still retain its throne as Asian Paints.
The king.
Cool. The king. Yeah. So I think Tejas, now let's give some context to the viewers here. Tejas is our in house paint expert, because not only has he researched thoroughly about the company and the industry, but he himself is among the 150,000 dealerships that Asian Paints has to their disposal. So we have like an in-house expert opinion to turn to when we need a little clarification. So can you just give us an insight into firstly what Asian Paints' business looks like? So what do they rely on? What do they do mainly? Stuff like that.
So, why Asian Paint stands out from the rest of them is because of the delivery time. Like, if
Before we get
some
into any
person.
of that, just let's just go into like a brief explainer of how Asian Paints works. So, where do they get their money from? And
So,
yeah,
majority of the revenue comes from sale of home decorative paint, and the other part comes from the home decor segment, which they have started recently, and they're building that segment up for and diversifying the portfolio as well. So, and they have an R&D team which is having new patents every now and then. They have 106 patents, and which are earning them a 10% revenue, which is like 10% of the whole revenue. So that is the majority, like segment wise revenue thing of Asian Paints.
okay. So to sum up what you said, I think about 95 to 96% of revenue comes just from the paint related sales, and
Yeah,
about the rest of the 5% ish comes from their home decor, which is their furniture, lighting, tiling,
kitchen and
wallpapers,
bath,
kitchen and bath fittings, etc.
and also
So
their paint servicing, like
yeah,
painting
they have a
contracts.
right. Correct. So all of that comes under. So although that just makes up about 5% of revenue, that's been one of the
Yeah,
fastest growing segments for them, and they're going to rely on it eventually uh, as a diversification or an expansion play. So they're calling it the share of space movement, basically from being just a
right.
surface level, like in a space, the only surface that they used to command over was the walls and the ceilings. So that was just surface level, and now they are commanding the entire space altogether. So it's a pretty
Home
cool
space,
movement.
yeah.
Yeah, and they have a lot of these beautiful home stores that are coming up. So Asian Paints is doing a lot, but I think when you boil it down to an industry, the paint industry player must be prevalent and dominant in just three specific areas. So that should be, as you mentioned earlier, product innovation. So a lot of R&D that goes into making your product the best product. Secondly, being production capacity, how much you produce, how much you are able to produce, and how much cost optimization you can manage to make yourself the most profitable player in that whole space. And third is distribution. So how from creating the product to making the product, how do you sell the product, and how many people you can sell it to. So we'll go through all of these step by step. So let's do it this way. Tejas, since you're more well versed with product, you
Yeah.
start with product innovation and differentiation. We can go to Shagnik, who tells us about, okay, or I'll take production capacity, and Shagnik can take the distribution level competition that we're facing in the paint industry. So, shoot,
Yeah.
you can start whenever.
So Asian Paints has been like all the other competitors have been trying to push their heart to their limits to compete with Asian. So they have launched new products like Nerolac has launched product called Excel Everlast, which has a product life of 12 years, and it is a self-cleaning product used for exterior paint, like
Okay,
painting the walls from exteriors.
right.
And with every rain, it can clean the paint surface and make it look like it's new paint coating.
This is by
And
Nerolac, right?
yeah, this is Nerolac, and this was made in competition with Asian Paints, Apex, Ultima, Dura Life, Protec.
Right,
So the name is big, and it has a competition, and with that because of the 15-year lifespan,
right.
waterproofing qualities, and self-cleaning product as well.
So in
So
this
this was,
particular case, Asian Paints product not only launched, I think about 5 7 years earlier than the Nerolac product,
yeah,
but also has a longer life where Asian Paints product is 15 years and Nerolac is 12.
yeah,
Good. So
and
there itself, one tick mark for Asian Paints. I think we have a
uh,
few more product like similarities that we can draw, right?
yeah. So after that, there is Nerolac No Damp, which is like for waterproofing. Like this was launched during 2020, and Asian Paints had launched this same product under the name of Damp Proof, which was launched way before that, and it also has waterproofing capacity, like qualities, and it's like a sealant for the wall,
Okay,
which will not allow the water to come inside through the cracks.
understood.
And then comes, this is for the exterior, and then
Right.
comes the interior segment, which has Nerolac Kashmir impression,
Okay.
is which has antibacterial properties, and also it has a superior coating, like the paint surface is
Okay.
feels the Teflon coating kind of feel. It has that, and at the same time, Asian launched Health Shield, which was way before this, and it is not only antibacterial but it also kills the germs.
Okay.
Uh, so this product was launched before COVID. So during COVID, everyone was like full protective and trying
Right.
to take all the precautions. So this product was a hit during that time because of
Wow.
its germ killing capacity.
And I think it's
So
odorless as well, right? So even if you paint
yeah,
it in
it's
no.
odorless as well. Yeah, right.
So to sum up, uh, Asian Paints not only does everything earlier than its competitors, but they do it better to an extent that the competition can't even match.
Yeah, right.
Right. So as you mentioned, I think there's no other better person to ask. You said during COVID also people were painting their homes.
Yeah.
So can you
So
tell us a little bit about that?
So during lockdown, there were people from rural areas. Like people didn't have anything to do, so they started painting their houses, temples, and that is the time when people got very innovative, creative,
Right.
and even if they weren't creative, wanted to do something. so they painted their houses
Wow.
just for passing the time.
So even if, let's say, in the most dire situation, people have nothing to do and they're painting their homes, which was the best selling product, at least brand wise.
So brand wise, best selling product was Health Shield, of course.
Okay.
People were not only being creative but also trying to protect themselves
Right.
from
And
COVID.
Asian, so even though, so there was no other option before COVID for something like this product did, like odorless,
Yeah, so
kills germs,
there was
decreases
product
smell.
like odorless, but there were no products which would kill the germs. The
Hmm.
surface wouldn't kill any germs.
Right. But this one did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So since again, while we're at it and we're talking about products and everything from a dealer's perspective, and I think this is from a like a retailer standpoint, that most Asian Paints products that anyone has seen are a little bit more expensive than your Nerolac or Berger or Dulux. Yet
Yeah, they
they're
are
racking
cost.
in numbers that are in the thousands of crores of revenue and volumes that are unmatched. So why is that from a dealer perspective that A, y'all are holding Asian products even though the margin is lesser for y'all, and B, y'all aren't able to push any other product that Asian is doing that well?
Yeah, the thing is, even if you try to push some other product just because you have more margin in that, people won't buy it because they have the brand loyalty. Asian
Right.
Paints has that brand loyalty, and people will give the premium for Asian Paints. So, if someone comes from a rural area and I try to sell him some product from Dulux or Berger, which
Which
is
is
like
technically
equally good,
cheaper.
yeah, equally good and technically cheaper,
Yeah.
but they won't budge for it because they have that thing for Asian Paints.
Right. Interesting. So the
So
demand is there despite a price increase
yeah,
for Asian paints. Cool.
so they
Interesting.
have products ranging from economy to premium range,
Right.
and they started their like the dealership from a rural area. So like other brands started the reader selling the products to the urban areas.
Right.
That was not the case with Asian Paints. So when it started its manufacturing and selling, people from the uh, modern cities were not budging for the product,
Oh,
and they were going for Shalimar, which was the only player back then.
correct.
But Asian Paints started doing something innovative. They went in the rural areas, and there was this festival. There is this festival called as Pol,
Pong,
Pong,
Pongal.
Pongal, yeah, in which you paint the bull horns.
Right.
So for this, you didn't need a paint which was 1 liter capacity, the quantity. You needed small, 50 grams or 25 grams ml wala.
Yeah.
So that was only available. That was made available by Asian Paints. Like that was their strategy,
Right.
and because of that, it became a hit in the rural areas. That Asian Paints का product मिलेगा हर चीज में.
That's so cool because they had such humble beginnings and now they've become such a large mammoth of a player that Shalimar though no one even thinks of anymore.
Shalimar is like a dinosaur now.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point of this podcast is to ensure that Asian Paints never becomes that dinosaur because they
Yeah,
have this kind of uh, not just the loyalty of brand that we've just discussed, but as we move further with the podcast, there are other factors that will ensure that Asian Paint still remains the big player that it is. Speaking of which, let's move to talking about production capacity. So I'll need some help with you guys for numbers, but just to recheck, I think currently Asian Paints produces in and around 100, 175 crore liter worth of paint. That makes
yeah,
them the largest with about, let's say, 50% or 60%, 50% of all production capacity being in their hands.
right.
175 crore liter. Then comes, I think, Berger second at about 95 crore liter. In fact, the interesting thing about Berger this time is they just launched a new production plant in UP, which is their largest. So their
Yeah,
production capacity went from 62 crore to 95 crore liter, making them the second largest player. Then comes your Nerolac at 60 crore, Dulux or Akzo Nobel at 25 crore, and JSW Paints at 12 crore, while Grasim is still zero, but their expansion plans are the most exorbitant ones. So in
Yeah,
terms of
they
production
are trying to
capacity,
win the big.
yeah, exactly. They're trying to take on Asian Paints head on, and the numbers are as follows. Grasim intends to add 133 crore worth of capacity in the next 5 years, spending more than 10,000
10,000.
crores. Yeah. So that kind of capacity will put them as the second largest player in the industry, just like that.
Yeah,
But while they are doing that, they haven't released a single product in the market, I'm assuming.
no, they are not.
So they have no product, they have no brand, they just have immense supply, but no demand. So that won't necessarily work in their favor unless they severely undercut prices, do some kind of uh, penetrative strategy by targeting a particular audience. But other than that, there doesn't seem to be any merit in the Grasim expansion. What do you all think?
They have to have some mad innovation to get into the market. Otherwise, it won't last. It will just be cash burning strategy then.
What do you think, Shagnik? From the current scenario of the
Yeah.
paint market, what is your view?
So even though if there's like innovation, it'd be a hard move to convince people to move from other brands to Grasim, which hasn't had a single product. So like you said, either in this kind of a scenario, either a really unique strategy works or the simple penetrative pricing strategy works.
Yeah, true. So there's
So
Grasim
penetrative
kind of take
strategy
on.
was sorry.
No, no,
So
please
the
continue.
penetrative strategy was tried by all other brands as well, like
But
the
it didn't
cost
work.
cutting and this. Yeah, it didn't work. So I don't see it working for Grasim.
But I think so for people watching the podcast and aren't aware of who Grasim is, they're the people behind Aditya Birla Cement, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So they have a massive cement, not just production capacity, but distribution and brand name on the cement side of the business. And although that
yeah,
sort of synergy doesn't percolate into their paint business, that's the kind of backing they have. So push comes to shove, they will make sales, but being able to dethrone Asian Paints seems like a long shot. And then I think the next best would still be Berger because they also intend to increase capacity, numbers for which aren't available at the moment, but from a 95 to at least 120 can be expected over the next few years. And then the rest are just at the same state that they always were. Nerolac, Dulux, and JSW will still remain in the lower rung of competition, whether it's production or innovation. And they don't even have access to as much funds as the other players do. So the only competitive factor here is how much money can someone pour into the business and make sure that they scale up and become as large as people expect them to.
right.
Right. Cool.
So
Now we come to distribution, and here Shagnik can take over.
So as we talked about the retail network, right? So
Right.
we start with, let's go like from the smaller ones. So Dulux is around 20,000 and
Okay.
Nerolac is around 30,000 and Berger is around 30,000 retail partners. I mean,
Okay.
Berger is around 50,000 retail partners. But
Right.
Asian Paints is just the 3x that amount. So it stands
Sure.
at 1,50,000 for network of retailers across the country.
Right.
So it has already been very established, and through such a densely weaved through network, it can cut down to a lot of successful implementation of strategies. For example, the paint companies have the that machinery, right? The paint tinting or the paint coloring
yeah,
machines which they set
Right.
up. So Asian Paints did a really good job at distributing those machines at their retail partners, and they also did. They also have the fastest delivery time of the paints, right? I think they can deliver it in one day, even if it's a single can of paint. So
yeah,
that strategy or that factor has been a USP for Asian Paints because other uh, competitors have not achieved that level of efficiency. So
Right.
if you look at retail networks, other competitors have a long way to go in terms of. number, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Other companies are trying to do that. Like Nerolac is trying to deliver its product within 1 hour for some premium products only, but not for all products. So they are trying to get to Asian Paints, but it's a long run.
Asian Paints has already been doing the whole delivery within a few hours thing, regardless of quantity, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think on that note, in the past 3 years or so, just to put numbers to this, they've added about 40 warehouses across the country, mainly situated in and around rural center points, so that they have access to a lot of the 150 may say. They're trying to locate those densely populated retail stores and place these massive warehouses. So I think before this podcast began, Tejas was saying that earlier their warehouse used to be anywhere between 20,000 square feet
yeah,
to 40,000 square feet.
yeah.
And now the recent 40 that they've added are close to 1.5 lakh square feet. So they have
Per
more
warehouse. Yeah,
per warehouse, yeah. So they've more than doubled the space that each warehouse requires. And I'm sure in the course of that, although they have seen a little margin restriction or margin contraction, that won't play out in the long run. But they have anticipated the amount of demand that's going to come in from the paint industry, not just in the past few years, but in the next 5 years. And they've managed to accommodate that insane level of supply so that, as Shagnik mentioned, those delivery times can be met regardless of who wants how much paint, they will have it on them at all times. So that's
yeah.
quite
Right.
the network that they've established.
They are adding 15,000 more retail points in next year by 2024.
Great. So then again, that brings them higher up in the chain, further away from its competition as always.
Yeah,
I think even so, since we were talking about Grasim, when they eventually do turn up with a product and they're able to produce it, they have access to north of 50, 60,000 people in their cement business. And
yeah, 55,000 network here.
I think they intend to take out about 40,000 from them to have their
Yeah,
paint products as well. So again, directly from zero to third player in distribution, zero to second player in production, it all remains to see whether Grasim is able to bring out that good of a product that it can range in the second and third place there as well. But as of now, again, as we recapped in the past 3 pointers, not only have they aced it in product innovation and recency in release of the product, but production capacity supremacy, production utilization supremacy. And if we have to bring numbers on that, I think they're the only ones in the industry with about a 75% utilization of the kind of
yeah,
installed capacity they house, whereas the average is around 50. So, not so. I mean, that's funny, right? Because Asian Paints is adding capacity, but is also able to utilize most of it, whereas all these other players already have low capacity, aren't using half of it, and are yet
and
adding
are
to it.
capacity more. Yeah,
So
I don't understand why it's that happening.
exactly. I'm sure it's just a showboating game, just to see who gets the most news, and obviously the news runs the stock market also to a certain extent. If you see Berger saying, "Oh, a big dignitary has come to UP, we've launched the largest manufacturing plant we ever have," stock price immediately goes up.
Yeah,
That's the kind of game they're playing, even though they may not require, or rather, it'll put a load on their financials if they have more of a capacity to tend to, which they can't even utilize to its full potential. They're just doing it to one up Asian Paints and Grasim and JSW, who have the funds to actually showboat. In fact, I think when we were going through the numbers, the only one who seemed to be doing the smart thing was Axo Nobel, because they're not adding any capacity, they're not spending money, but they're bringing their utilization up from 40% to 60% in the next few years, which makes sense because जो है वो use करो, like every Indian parent would say, use what you have before buying more. And it's the same logic that even they're applying. So production wise, aced it there as well. And now, as Shagnik beautifully explained, distribution doesn't seem to be even a minor problem in terms of competition, because Asian Paints has 3x the next player also, and will continue
Exactly.
to do that as they incrementally add retail. So as of now, it doesn't seem like the competition is going to phase Asian Paints in any way. Only it'll be left to see how the market reacts to it, not just the stock market, but the paint market. and whether other players are able to release more innovative products at a cheaper rate and able to sort of circumvent the sort of Asian Paints premium that they pay, not just in valuations, but in product premium. But let's say Pura paint business goes to shit. Let's assume that. What does Asian Paints have to offer then? And that's, I think, where the home decor business comes in. It's not just their expansion play, but it's their backup plan in case the paint industry doesn't do well in the next few years. There will always be a need for decor because there's always a need for luxury housing. And I think that's the kind of, not they're not necessarily marketing a premium audience, they're marketing it to the middle class, but the product feel is quite premium. And I think that can be very visible in these stores that they've started called Beautiful Homes. I think if we can get some numbers on that, like how many stores are there right now?
There are about 50 stores, I guess,
Right.
beautiful homes, and they are trying to add 50 more next year.
So they're going to double their stores in this year.
Yeah.
Great. So these stores basically have their kitchen and bath fittings, their furniture business, and their lighting business, apart from just other services that they provide that all around give you a home improvement interior solution. So if both of you can just tell the audience what kind of businesses they've had in the home decor business and how they've got these businesses. So I think all of them have been acquisitions. So the first
So,
one was back in 2013. So let's start from there.
so the first business that they acquired was Sleek,
Okay.
which was the kitchen segment,
Okay.
and it acquired like 49% for 120 CR back then,
Right.
and then it acquired the remaining 51% in a staggered manner for 30 or 50 odd per hours, and
Okay. So
after that
basically
it
they own
acquired
the entire
SS.
Leak business.
Yeah, by 2017 it had acquired the whole business.
Okay. And SS is again the kitchen related.
uh, SS is the bath related
No.
business.
Sorry, I'm talking about Sleek.
Kitchen Sleek is the kitchen related business, which has the like the trolleys and everything that is required is for
Okay.
modular kitchen, that segment. And SS is the bathroom fitting solution.
So those are the taps and your jet sprays and your flushes and
Yeah,
your. Oh, I get it. I
yeah.
get it. Right.
So they bought it in 2014, and they did it in the same manner. Like they bought 41%, 49% first, and then 51%. But the numbers are unclear at what valuation they bought them.
And I think both of them also started, let's say, operations started in 2017, and their revenues at the time were around 150 crore each. Both
Yeah,
of them have tripled their revenues in 5 years.
yeah.
So
And they
they've
have turned the
almost
business from
400.
loss to profit now.
Exactly. And it's, I think this particular segment of the business, their bath and kitchen one, has grown at a 32% CAGR in the past 5 years, which is
Yeah,
unreal. The fact that they've
yeah.
turned it around so well. So clearly, Asian Paints has done a good job at doing acquisitions. Now we come to Shagnik, who will explain the latest acquisitions that they've done in 2021, 22.
Yeah, so they did acquisition in the furniture segment, which was in weather seal penetration. That was
Right.
for 51% stake,
Okay.
and that was done for around 19 crores. And they'll acquire another 24% in the next few years, I guess, in the next 3 years.
Right.
So weather seal fenestration, these guys do more of the interior decoration, then furniture fitments, then PVC windows, door systems, all of that. So
Right.
living room stuff, bedroom stuff, the furniture equipment. And they're mainly probably going to be operating in the B2B segment. They
Okay.
also acquired a company in the lighting segment, that is White Teak. That was also
Okay.
done in 2022, and that was done for 180 crore. And they again did a 49% acquisition in this one. They'll be doing
Right.
another 51% in the coming years. So they do in decorative lights, chandeliers, all of that.
Interesting. So they basically, I don't think there's anything left in terms of a home decor bit that Asian
Right.
Paints can do. I think they also intend to start their own tiling business, which is yet unclear whether they're going to produce on their own or acquire another company. But clearly, the acquisition trajectory or history has been fairly good. If they can turn around a loss-making two brands into profitable ones, or at least less loss-making than they were before, and triple the revenues, then I'm sure the furniture and lighting segment they must have done with some sort of vision and expectation for it to grow at a certain level in the next 5 years.
Also, they are the leaders like in the organized lightning segment
Is
and
it? Oh,
in
that's
the
good.
bath, yeah, and in the kitchen segment as well.
Wow. So that's pretty interesting because they not only have they acquired this and poured money into that, but they don't really need to set up new distribution for any of this. Like except for the fact that they've set up those beautiful home stores. If they need to, they can sell few of their home improvement solutions via the paint dealers.
Yeah,
And since there's such a large number of them, I'm sure it'll penetrate the right audience at some point, and that business from right now being 5% of revenue might just become 10% of revenue in the next 5 years. And I think that is
it
the
can.
expectation that the management keeps uh, in the as of the latest quarter. So let's see.
Yeah,
Okay, now that we've done the whole business wala lowdown, I think it's time to get to some more balance sheet economics sort of numbers. And even on that front, Asian Paints seem to be doing well because they registered about a 14-15% revenue CAGR in the past 5 years, which basically means they doubled their revenue in the past 5 years. And that is much better than the industry average of around 13 or 12. So Berger is the only one that's slightly at the same level in terms of revenue growth and profitability growth. Of course, the numbers are wide, but growth numbers of these two companies are similar. But where the difference comes is in their margins. So Asian Paints has almost maxed out with the highest margins in the industry at about 19-20%. This is operating margins, of course, so EBITDA related, while the competitor average, which is all Berger, Nedlac, Axo averages, comes up to about 13 or 14. So that's quite the wide this thing because again, as we spoke, Asian Paints is able to utilize three-fourths of its production capacity, whereas the others aren't able to do even half. So
yeah.
that's where operating efficiency really turns up and shows well. Profitability wise, they've registered like a PAT CAGR of 15% in the past decade, which is phenomenal for a company that's remained a market leader. Usually, when you see market leaders, they grow at a very slow rate because there's no more room. There's no headroom for them to grow, but yet they managed to even double their profits in the past few years, whereas the industry average is also a little 13% or so. So they've outperformed in margins, they've outperformed in revenue, they've outperformed in profitability, they've outperformed in ROE also, where they're the highest at 28%, whereas the competitive average is around 19%.
So basically, they have topped everything.
They've topped everything in financials as well. Only thing is, when it comes to valuations, there might be a little iffiness towards that because they're trading at pretty high multiples. Even at a TTM basis, their PE is the highest in the industry at about 60 times, if I'm not wrong, currently.
Yeah,
And forward multiple wise, also, they trade pretty high. But that premium obviously comes with the fact that they are that large of a company. They have performed historically at a very large scale and at a very efficient manner. So those premiums are obviously attributed towards those qualities that Asian Paints has and will continue to have. Hence, those premiums might just sustain in the long run.
it might be because like all people want Asian paints for their home
Exactly.
painting purpose. They want that stock as well.
Exactly. And I mean, who wouldn't, right? Because I think if you had invested in it, let's say a decade ago, you would have made 7 to 8 times your money. Who
Yeah,
wouldn't want that kind of investment just sitting in your portfolio?
that too
So,
at with a well-established company. No risk.
yeah, exactly.
Very less risk, not no
Yeah,
risk.
there is
Yeah,
always risk, of course.
yeah.
But yeah, the risk with a blue chip company like them is fairly less. But of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all just educational. And none of the numbers that we say in terms of forward looking nature are to be taken as recommendations. So we're just doing it for fun and it's an educational exercise. But I think, bottom line, as we've discussed, competition wise, there doesn't seem to be any threat currently and the threat in the future is yet to be seen. But from what we've tried to extrapolate, production wise, they're way ahead. Product wise, they're way ahead. Distribution wise, they're way ahead. And backup line wise, they're way ahead. So they've covered all the bases. They've checked all the boxes. Now it depends on how the market deals with the news of the immense competition that's coming their way. And market expectations are that the paint industry is probably going to grow at a 10% CAGR in the next 5 years. So keeping that in mind, let's see if Asian Paints continues to outperform or is actually dethroned by another competitor. But I think it's only over.
It has performed better than the industry as well, right?
Right. It always has. In the past decade, though, it has, and it. So the expectation is that it will continue to do so, but you never know. But as of now, we are still of the opinion that everyone wants Asian paints, as you mentioned, not just in
Yeah,
your homes but in your portfolios, and that speaks volumes of the brand that they've managed to build over the past
yeah.
6 decades.
Damn, that's a
Insane.
long time.
Yeah, 6 decades is a long time, and Grasim thinks they can do it in 5 years. So hopefully that won't be. I mean, you never know. It's all
Going for a
future.
long shot.
Going for a very long shot, but long shots work. They hit a long shot too, hitting on
Yeah.
Shalimar where it hurts. Yeah, great. So I think that was quite the interesting conversation about Asian paints. And if you are a paint investor or you're a paint user or just anyone who's looking for a new stock to read about, then the history behind Asian paints is one that will really move you, and it's one that we think you can read into at least. And yeah, that's about it.
That's about it.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We'll come to you
Yeah.
next week with yet another interesting topic. Until then, thank you, stay safe, and like
Thank you.
chill. Okay,
Bye bye.
that's a wrap.
Peace out.